Hi, everybody. Welcome into It's Official, the weekly banter show where we take on 5 hot topics in the horse racing industry. Jeff Siegel, Jeremy Plonk. We have perfect brackets right now. It's Tuesday. Nothing has gone wrong yet this first week of March Madness. Welcome in, Jeff.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's March Madness. It's Derby fever starting to creep in. Lots of changes. Horses dropping away, horses rising to the
Yeah.
occasion, and then certain horses, and we'll talk about this right off the top. I'm still not sure which direction I want to go in, and that's what we're going
Yeah.
to discuss about Tappet Trice,
Right.
who is undefeated and is all the rage. And I see something in him that I really, really like, and I see something in him that I'm really afraid of. So we'll talk about that.
We talk a lot about the on track, what's going on in racing. First off the top, though, I want to say congratulations to Paul Callia, the winner of the National Handicapping Championship, the NTRA, big one in Las Vegas, banked more than $900,000. And Jeff, there's a telltale to this as well. As Paul was interviewed after winning the big one, he's gotten away from betting the horses in the last year and has gone more to sports betting. He lives in a state, Missouri, that doesn't have ADW. He's got to travel a long way to bet the horses. He mentioned the high takeout. He hasn't bet the horses in a couple months. He came in fresh and won the NHC because he had qualified earlier in the year. But this is something we have to look at as an industry here is, can we be competitive with sports betting? Because there's a big allure out there and we've got to make the product as appealing as we can.
No, it's certainly a wake up call. You can't just kind of cruise. You've got to adjust to the times, and there are a lot of other options. When I first got into horse racing as a kid, it was the only game in town.
Right.
Now it's not. So, and I coming back from Vegas, I was there for the Pac-12 tournament last week. People were betting the games.
Yeah.
More so than the horses. In fact. When I went to bet a horse at New York hotel, I mean, I was like the only guy there. So it's it's a little concerning, but we try to do our best.
Well, we try to get people engaged in the game, some of the stuff that we do here, and of course, Express Bet and First Bet. We've got to be competitive, but we've got to take care of our core customers. There's no question about that. And the core customer is the one who can probably carry the torch better than any marketing plan that we have. Yeah. We all learned from somebody, the mentorship, whether it's a relative, a friend, a neighbor, whatever. Teach the game to somebody else. Hopefully, that's what we do here with some of our online. Let's go to the first topic of our 5 on the big board this week. It is 2 views on Trice. Tappet Trice was the overwhelming 1-2 favorite in the Tampa Bay Derby. The only thing maybe that could got him beat was himself, Jeff. And at the start, he almost kind of did. Let's take a look at him here. He's going to be number 6, the Gray, Jeff. And what happens here at the start?
He actually came out with his field. He just doesn't have any 0 to 60 speed. I mean, I drive a Tesla. I know what it takes to get on the freeway when the green light pops. This colt he comes out. He wants to break well, but he just can't get moving. Yeah. You can get away with that against horses that he was running against in the Tampa Bay Derby. And certainly we'll see what he did from the quarter pole home, which was eye-opening. But if you're talking about a Kentucky Derby with 20 horses, you cannot pull that stunt. You have to get into the fray. I mean, yeah, you can win from dead last if you have a pace meltdown. But I don't know. That's not the kind of gamble I would like to make unless he learns how to get going, and he's got only one more chance to learn it in the afternoon. But in terms of the race itself, there's no doubt that he's a high-class colt.
Let's see him move on the outside here on the far turn and pick him up in the stretch.
Tappet Trice is trying to get going with Mikey Bananas on the outside. They're both on the move, but they're both very wide as they come to the top of the stretch. A scramble here, Dreaming of Coda down the outside. Prairie Hawk, Classic Car Wash continues to make up ground down the center of the track. Here comes that big Gray Tappet Trice right down the outside. Tappet Trice trying to mow down Classic Car Wash. Here comes Tappet Trice, and Tappet Trice going to go on to win the Tampa Bay Derby. Classic Car Wash was second, Classic Legacy third, fourth went to Prairie Hawk.
Now, this was essentially a replay of the Sam F. Davis Stakes with 7 alumni of that race, all who lost to Davis to litigate, another Todd Fletcher trainee. Right. He didn't come back for this one. He's gone to the Louisiana Derby next. but this was a replay of the Sam Davis, and it went 8 lengths faster than the Sam Davis. So this was a better group, a better winner for sure in here, Jeff. But I don't know what he's beating here at Tampa, and he's going to have to get better. The good thing is he's got another start to try to do so. Some green horses kind of get this far in the Derby trail, and then all of a sudden it's Derby time. He still has one more appearance in the Bluegrass, and it's got to be a move forward time.
It does. The number was in the high 80s, so that's not going to get it done. Now, he did accomplish something that few horses could have done in that race, and that is win from where he was at the top of the stretch. He was hopelessly beaten, it seemed, and he wasn't really picking it up.
No.
So, I mean, he galloped out real well. He's a long-winded, long-striding colt without any kind of quick turn of foot or acceleration, But I don't worry too much about that. I worry about the kind of trip he might end up getting in the Kentucky Derby with 20 horses. The way he came out of the gate, and how slow he was early, he's going to be dead last in the Kentucky Derby. I can't imagine anybody being slower than him. And so you can't – that's just asking a lot. Now, I was hoping that he would kind of get the message and not go to the front, but at least sit somewhere in the middle and take the rider to the top of the stretch. And that wasn't the case. You saw the rider pushing and shoving, and shoving, and not really much of a response. So, I mean, listen. He was actually my pick to win the Kentucky Derby before the race. Now, because I thought the progression was going to be there. Now I'm not so sure. Todd's got to figure out what to do. Now, Keeneland better than anybody that I know of, better than me. And that is, the fact is, now I'm concerned about going to the Bluegrass. What do you think Keeneland's track, is that going to be, is that going to fit his style, or is he going to be up against it there?
Well, we'll get the full stretch to run with at the 1 1/8 for the Bluegrass. So that's a positive compared to the 1 1/16 races with the short stretch. So that'll be a good thing. And I actually think the 1,234 feet at Churchill will help a horse like that, because he does lope and reach and grind good down the stretch. But as for the Bluegrass, there are years when that race does come back. You think there are some closers that have won the race in recent years. And then a lot of times, speed is just really good at Keeneland, So it'll be a day-to-day thing. How the winds blowing at Keeneland is usually a big deal, because it's very gusty and breezy there. And when you've got that backstretch tailwind at Keeneland, they just don't come back. Horses coast on the front end. So there'll be considerations like that, but he won't want to be as far back as he is now. That race there at Tampa, he's got to get up into the race a little bit better than that, but there's still a lot of talent there. He's green. He reminds me a little bit, not exactly how it happened, but the manner in which it happened, which the Charge It ran last year in the Florida Derby. Remember how green he was in the stretch? And we said, man, this horse has talent, but he was out of time, right? Charge It was out of time in the Florida Derby. It was just Kentucky Derby next. At least this horse gets another prep in between, And so his greenness and his inexperience and where he needs to improve, he at least has one more big practice. So we'll put Allen Iverson on it. We're going to talk about practice, and we're going to need it for Tappet Trice. But he's definitely a talented horse. He's just got to get a couple kinks worked out if he's going to become a Kentucky Derby winner. I guess they all do, though, still at this point. Let's go to the second topic this week on the big board. We lost one off the Derby trail. His name, of course, was Arabian Night, of course. Not as easy, of course, as I say. But Arabian Night taking off the Kentucky Derby trail this week, Jeff. Let's go back and watch him work. He's working here for trainer Tim Yaktine in those colors. Of course, transfer from Bob Baffert Barn prior to that February 28th deadline. Off the Derby trail after this work, and they're going to wait for the summer now. What do you make of it?
Well, this work was last Thursday, and they pulled the plug on him like 2 days later. So I wonder if he came out of the work okay. I didn't think the work was bad. I mean, he worked in 13. I guess they were hoping he might go in 11 and change, but he wasn't being asked at all. And so I can't say the work was bad. He looked like the colt was doing what they wanted him to do, just maybe not as fast, but he certainly could have gone faster. This is a colt who's undefeated in 2 starts. He won his first start at Keeneland by 7, came back and won the Southwest by 5.5. And we all see his action. He's crooked in the front. I mean, he doesn't. I don't know if he's crooked, but he his inside front leg doesn't go straight when he's breezing. Maybe he walks well, but
Right.
I don't know what the real reason is, if in fact there is a real reason, because when you have a colt that on paper looks like he's got maybe one or two horses to worry about, and that's it, and you're undefeated, and your owner obviously pays all this kind of money to run in the Kentucky Derby, I don't think we're getting the full story here. I really don't. And I mean, Tim's a really good horseman, and he probably told the owner and Bob, the colt's back is Bob Baffert now, by the way. This horse, I don't think we should go on with him, and that was the case. And so, but he's still good. I just hope that he comes back as well as he left, because by the time he comes back, we're going to need fresh faces after that churn in the Triple Crown. If he misses that, we're going to need a newcomer, and he'll come back. He'll be a welcome addition to the class. But it's too bad to lose him, because Jeremy, I saw your top 10. I agree with most of it. But it doesn't look like it's that deep. We need a colt like this in this division, and we're not going to have him for the Triple Crown.
No, it's not very deep. I mean, you got Forte at the top. Practical Move on the West Coast has looked really good. I think Instant Coffee's done his race in the Lecomte, did him well this year, as well as finishing up well last year. And then you're getting into the Tapit Trices, where you're saying, boy, I like him, but I don't love him, Right. And then beyond that, it's starting to get, like, all right, these horses are fringe contenders at this point, and we're at high time. Now, the loss for Arabian Night on the Triple Crown Trail continues a rather disconcerting couple weeks for these Bob Baffert / Timmy Actine runners. Think about this. Newgate is injured and out. National Treasure was scratched with a foot problem since moving to the Actine barn. Faustin hasn't worked since February 18th. Fort Warren has had 2 scratches and hasn't worked since February 25th. That may be 4 horses there, in addition to Arabian Night, who are off the trail from the barn. You still have Worcester and Reincarnate, the horses who are going from that Baffert transfer portal, if you will. But it has absolutely fallen apart. His barn is 0 for 7 in stakes races since the Baffert horses switched to other barns. Only 1 third-place finish among those Reincarnate. 3 scratches, and now a horse or 2 off the Derby trail completely. It has not gone right for the world's greatest Triple Crown trainer over the past, February 28th to today's March 14th. We're looking at 15 days.
Yeah, no, I mean the bottom has really fallen out of his stable with regards to Derby horses. Worcester's headed to Dubai. He's not obviously with Bob, so he's not a Triple Crown horse. Mm-hmm. Then you have, I think National Treasure may have breezed this morning, I think it was, so he's at least healthy. The best of the ones that are left standing is not going to go to the Kentucky Derby, and that is Cave Rock, who's actually doing really well. But he's with Bob, so he can't get any points, and he's not going to go to the Kentucky Derby. But he breezed. This was last Thursday. He went in 58-2, and this is about as slow as they could hold him. I mean, he looks like the Cave Rock that was all the rage last year as a 2-year-old. He's had some time off, and he's coming back really, really well. He's switches leads right there. He's breezing every step of the way. I mean, he literally could have gone at 57 if they wanted to. So I'm curious to what Bob has plans for him. Obviously, he could be a Preakness horse, Jeremy, but I don't know what's going to happen between now and then.
Yeah, he's probably got to get a race in him, obviously. He hasn't run since his 2-year-old year, the end of the year in the Breeders' Cup. If he's going to run a Triple Crown race, he's got to get a prep in him of some sort. There'd be some options. You could just run in the Santa Anita Derby. There's nothing stopping Baffert from running a horse in the Santa Anita Derby out of his backyard. That's a tough one to ask first time off the layoff. A week or 2 later, you got the Lexington at Keeneland, and that starts to feel a little bit more like a possibility because it's a mile and a 16th, an easy distance, 16th pole finish line. And you're already kind of on the path coming east in the Preakness Stakes. We've seen horses out of the Lexington to the Preakness in the past. That's been a fairly decent prep path of horses who don't end up running in the Kentucky Derby. So he can't run in the Derby, but Baffert can keep him under his care, get him to Kentucky, to Keeneland, move him on to Maryland, and be a pretty stout new shooter. When we talk about the new shooters in the Preakness, it's usually kind of secondhand or coming to the 4 late kind of horses. This would be a rather well-established graded stakes winner from 2, back on the mend and fresh for the Preakness. He'd be one of the more dangerous new shooters if he were able to win a race between now and Pimlico and come into that race. That would be a exciting prospect, I would say, for the Preakness Stakes for sure.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time, a Preakness shooters are horses that aren't good enough to go in the Kentucky Derby. This colt, all things being normal, probably would still be pointed for that. But without that happening, he'll come in as a fresh race. And if he wins his prep race, wherever it may be, he is going to be well backed, if not the favorite, in Maryland. So that's. But we talked about the contenders, and without Baffert, there just isn't the depth that we normally have.
Yeah, it's a different era right now, and it's as we move to our Triple Crown tracker, we'll see what the public is trying to do with this 3-year-old crop, because we just had a Kentucky Derby Future Wager Pool 5 completed on Sunday. It was held Friday through Sunday around the country at wagering outlets. Here's the shakedown. There were the top 10 listed on the left. These are the 10 lowest individual odds. I believe it was 10-1 on all other 3-year-olds at this point, 40 pari-mutuel interest involved. So you would think at this point in the year with 40 that you're probably going to get a Derby winner on that individual horse list. But Arabian Night was in there. Wagering was suspended on him. Interestingly enough, he was 9-1 third choice. They had 19,000 bet on this horse, and he was taken out before the pool closed. So there was a lot of early money bet in here, which is strange. There's no reason to bet early in a future pool that closes on a Sunday. You kind of wait till the end and see what your price is going to be. But 19 grand, third most, was bet on Arabian Night before he was taken out of the pool on Sunday. So if you look at these prices, Jeff, it's Forte and everybody else at this point.
Yeah, 3-1. You think about taking 3-1 on a horse like Forte, and you still have another prep race, and you got several weeks before the race. Who needs 3-1? Because traditionally those odds are higher than they should be with all the crazy money bet into the pool on Derby Day. But if Forte were to win his next start, he looks like a horse that has the potential to be a very short price on Derby Day. If he is as impressive at his Florida Derby win as he was in the Fountain of Youth, I would have to think that he's going to be very solid. And yet, when you're betting future book prices, you don't usually, or you probably shouldn't, take a short price. There's too many things that can happen in the interim. What you're trying to do is find an overlay or a horse that's got a big price that may be much less on Derby Day if you think he's going to, advance in his next prep. And there's a couple horses here that I think may be offering value. First of all, I like Practical Move a lot. I don't know about 12-1, but I think he's a legitimate threat to Forte at this stage. But the other two horses that I wanted to talk about, Jeremy, Hit Show is 28-1. I could live with that at this stage. I think he's a really nice progressive colt. And the other one I would throw in, and I'm going to go down sink and swim with this horse, and that is Skinner, who was at 45-1 when it closed, right. And I could live with that as well, because I don't think Skinner's going to show his best till he gets out of California, which may or may not happen. But if he does show up at 45-1, I could live with that.
Yeah, that's not too bad. We included some Oaks Derby double prices. This is the first time they offered an Oaks Derby double in the future wager, which I think is a cool bet and interesting. The lowest double was 17-1, so $1 bet got you $17 profit back. Forte and Wet Paint. Wet Paint, the winner of the Honeybee for Brad Cox, is the low price in the Oaks Derby doubles. If you look at through Tap It Trice, through Practical Move, the low number was Wet Paint. So you and I talked a week or so ago about this 3-year-old filly division, who might step up. People like the Honeybee winner, apparently, and she's the favorite pretty solidly in these doubles. Slight favorite over Wonder Wheel and Hoosier Philly, but in no matter what the combination, she seems to be the favorite.
Well, at $1, 17-1 for Forte over Wet Paint looks a lot more attractive than Forte at 3-1 in the Derby.
Right,
I don't know,
right?
Because I like Wet Paint. I mean, she's a proven off-track runner, and does it ever not rain on Oaks Day? I don't know. So, but even if you think that Wonder Wheel and Hoosier Philly are going to bounce back, still, I mean, Wet Paint is a progressive filly. She'll obviously love a mile and an eighth. She'll handle any ground. And if you like Forte, and you think, I don't care about anybody else. I mean, what I saw last time out tells me he's going to continue to win. 17-1 in that Oaks double for $1 is pretty good value, I think, for a wager that you probably weren't going to look too much at until you saw what the price was.
Yeah, pretty mischievous at 45-1 in the Oaks Derby double too. I mean, she's looking great in New Orleans. If she wins her final prep, she goes into the Kentucky Oaks as second favorite, and you get 45-1 with the Derby favorite in there likely as well. So interesting stuff. Our Triple Crown tracker this week takes a look at the Kentucky Derby future wager. Fourth topic on the board, we're going to get away from the 3-year-olds now and talk about a couple older fillies and mares. We saw some outstanding action in the Breeders' Cup Distaff division over the course of last week. That's what we're talking about. Yeah, I'd say Secret Oath. She's back to her best with the performance she put on in the Azeri.
Secret Oath is tipped outside. She's next to last and 6 lengths off the lead and just in front of Clairiere, who is positioned a bit toward the inside. Clairiere is hugging the rail as they come around the turn, and she is about 7 or 8 lengths off the lead. They come to the final quarter mile in the Azeri. Hot and Sultry up to Lovely Ride. Lovely Ride inside. Hot and Sultry to the outside. And then on the extreme outside, Secret Oath has a clear path, and she is coming on. Clairiere is in behind horses. Secret Oath coming at Hot and Sultry. Interstate Daydream on the inside, now third. Secret Oath is making a winning return to the races in 2023. Draws off impressively with the Azeri.
Fabulous race there. It was a deep field. Clairiere, the Black-Eyed Susan winner, Interstate Daydream. The Azeri Stakes looked a lot like the Apple Blossom, and it was the prep for the Apple Blossom. And she looked in Apple Blossom form, Jeff. Secret Oath, as good as she's looked since the Kentucky Oaks last year.
You remember how many conversations we had last year as to why Secret Oath was not reproducing her best form? And both of us kept saying they're moving too soon. She'd make this move at the 5/8 bowl, and she'd look great to the 8th bowl and then hit a wall. And so we talked about this race last Friday, and I'm saying I like the fact that Tyler Gaffleone is going to get on her for the first time. He might ride her like a grass horse, which means you don't let her run at all until the quarter pole or the 8th pole, and then she'll kick in. And that's exactly what happened. And I love this quote from Tyler after the race. He said, going into the second turn, she tried to go about the 3/8 pole, just took a little hold of her, and she came right back to me. Well, yeah, because she's tried to go at the 3/8 pole, because that's all she ever used to do is go at the 3/8 pole. And no jock would ever have the guts or the patience to say, no, you're not going to move yet. Yeah. Well, Tyler did. He grabbed her, he sat, and she just dragged him to the top of the stretch, hit the front, never felt the whip, never asked to run at all, just crushed the field. Now, I have to ask you, Jeremy, I mean, is it Oaklawn? We know she loves Oaklawn. Or maybe this is the style that finally her connections have figured out needs to be employed for her to run her best race.
No, to me, it's the style. You know, she won the Kentucky Oaks. So she's not just an Oaklawn horse, right? She's won the big one on the road. And the one race where she was ridden like that by Luis Saez was the Kentucky Oaks, where they waited and then she blew by. If you do that, you know, she hasn't done it in her other races for Saez, and she didn't do it for Luis Contreras prior to that. But, you know, this is a case where the jockey change was made because Saez was riding the Derby hopeful Tapit Trice at Tampa Bay on Saturday. That left the mount open. Lucas made a good call getting Tyler Gaffleone. This is one of those. I don't think you go back to the former rider. No, knock at all to Luis Saez, and no knock at all for leaving and going to ride a horse potentially who could be one of the favorites for the Kentucky Derby. Totally understandable in all counts. And as Wade Lucas once told me, he likes to tell his jockeys, guys, we're not married, we're just dating. And so he's not going to be loyal to the rider and say, you got to come back to Luis Saez. Now this was his mount or whatever. Lucas plays the hot hand, and he knows, just like a coach. You bring somebody into the game, they knock down a couple threes, you stay with them. This was a 3-point shot from Tyler Gaffleone. This was how this horse needs to be ridden. And I think those two will stay together from here to 4. As long as Gaffleone doesn't have a better mount somewhere that we're not thinking of for Brad Cox or somebody else. I mean, I would think that this is a very good match.
It really is. I mean, he could not have ridden her better, and she could not have responded to the rider's instructions better. As Tyler said, she wanted to go. He said, nope. And she said, okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. Yeah, I'll wait. And then just blew on by. And Clairiere, who was second in the race, was taken back and rallied well. But she was she wasn't making up any ground on Secret Oath. She was actually kind of losing ground at the end. And that's how good a race this was. Last 16th in 5 and 4. I mean, I just was blown away with her. I think she could be. I mean, she could be Malathat this year, as far as I'm concerned, if she's continuing to be ridden that way. So impressed with Secret Oath. Can't wait to see her this year, and I think she has a chance to put Wayne Lukas back on top at least one last time, for sure.
Hey, and there is a weak handicap division this year. We've talked about it over and over. And if there's a trainer willing to cross over with a filly into the handicap division, it's Wayne Lukas. Don't be surprised if she's a horse for Saratoga or one of these big fall races against the boys. If she's this good right now, if she continues to progress, she could be one of the best older horses in America, regardless of sex. And I think that you could potentially see her, if she keeps moving forward, running one of these big races against the boys. Now, the Distaff division picked up another serious player this past weekend when the Grade 1 Beholder Mile was won by Amore. This is a Brad Cox trainee who's come to Cox's barn now 3 for 3 since moving to his barn, and she just keeps getting better. She ran down the favorite, Fun to Dream, in the Beholder Mile.
Fun to Dream in front, has a 2-length cushion on Amore in second, who's trying her best to close the gap. They're inside the final 1/8 of a mile. Fun to Dream, Amore within a half length. Amore is trying to get to Fun to Dream. Fun to Dream digging in. Amore surging. These two come to the wire together. Amore got up in the last jump to beat Fun to Dream. Midnight Memories was next, followed by Desert Dawn.
And Jeff, that'll tidy me up for the next month and fortunate head bobs at the end of a race, because I needed Amore to get up. She got up just in time, and that worked out well for our Express Bet Race of the Week players as well. This is the filly who ran the exact same race at Oaklawn last time out in Stakes Company. She just kept grinding and grinding and grinding and got to the front runner eventually. Same thing happened in here. This was only a mile. I don't know how far Amore is going to go upon her best, but she's an interesting new player, and Brad Cox seems to have a player in every division.
Great pick, by the way. I thought that Amore would run well, but I didn't think, and certainly in retrospect, given the trip that Fun to Dream had, pressing a moderate pace, putting out a straw on her path, relaxed beautifully, kick clear. I thought she shook off Amore at the 8th pole, and Amore was relentless. I mean, she really, really wanted to catch that filly. I didn't see her up close and personal. She looks like a kind of a compact type of a filly. But, I mean, what a will to win. And Fun to Dream did everything but win, but flat got beat. There's no excuse there.
Yeah.
Amore, career top number there, a relatively lightly raced filly by Uncle Mo. She's 4. She's only had 12 starts. But as you pointed out, she's perfect 3 for 3 now with rising speed figures since joining the Brad Cox barn. They sold her at the Fasig-Tipton November sale as a racing broodmare prospect for $400,000. I looked at her pedigree, looked at her race record. I thought that took a little guts, but that's a bargain now. That's a steal. And Amore now has a
Grade 1.
Yeah, I mean, she was Grade 1 place because she had that already in her hip pocket when they sold her. She was 3rd in the Frisette, but still, I mean, this is a race mare now who's got a tremendous amount of money-making potential. I wouldn't be going after Secret Oath if I were a Brad, but maybe he will. But bottom line is I think she's supposed to run now, wait for the race on Derby Day or Oaks Day, I think.
La Troyenne.
Yeah. So we'll probably see her then. But she's got a chance because she's got such a will to lay her body down to be a serious player in that older division right now. Very, very impressive run. And Fun to Dream ran a race. I had no fault with it. She just got beat.
Yeah. In a fairly quiet week last week for the 3-year-olds outside of Tampa, and a very quiet week this week with no points preps on the Derby Trail. Nice to see some distaff buzz this past weekend around the country. Let's go to our Stars of Tomorrow segment. It's our 5th and final here each week on It's Official. We talked about Carl Spackler a couple weeks ago for Chad Brown, an impressive winner in Gulfstream Turf Maiden Special Company. The horse that beat Carl Spackler in the career debut was back, and he has announced he's going to be pretty serious. His name is Far Bridge. Let's go back to the replay this past weekend at Gulfstream for Far Bridge, winning his second straight.
The stretch, so Harry Time carries the favorite along with him, Far Bridge, but the bad news is neither one has any room yet. Off the turn on the stretch drive, Curly, Larry and Mo has the lead by 2.5. Harry Time's in the clear. Look at Far Bridge, knife between horses. Great ride, Jose Ortiz, as Far Bridge has hit the front, and this is all over. Far Bridge, he proves his last was no fluke, and he's a colt with a future. He wins by 4.
So, Jeff, what do you make of this one? He did his Rich Strike impression coming down the stretch there. It's like a video game, weaving in and out of horses and drawing clear. Nice one for Christophe Clement.
2 for 2 now for Far Bridge. We mentioned the victory over Carl Spackler in his debut, and when they were both making their debut, and Carl Spackler came back and was equally impressive. We saw his race last week, and now Far Bridge, as if the race needed to be franked even farther, comes back and just gallops again. He's by English Channel out of a mare by Kitten's Joy. I don't think Christophe's going to have any feeling about trying him on dirt. He won't be motivated by that.
No.
He has a tremendous amount of speed. He just manufactures it from the 8th pole of the wire. He quickens like a good horse. That's what a grass horse is supposed to look like. And Carl Spackler, who he beat in a photo, by the way, has the same kind of style. So these are 2 exceptionally good 3-year-old grass prospects. I think if they were overseas, they'd be Guineas horses, if not the Derby horses of England or France or wherever. But they're here. And if they can avoid each other for a while, I don't think either one of them is going to be losing anytime soon. But a very impressive win there by one of my favorite horses, English Channel. This is the English Channel has always been an underrated sire. They never sold much at auction because he usually gets a small horse. But when they're good like this, they're really good. And Far Bridge is really, really good.
I just saw this morning Penn National announced that the Penn Oaks and the Penn Mile are going to be the first Saturday in June this year. And these are 3-year-olds on the turf going a mile for a lot of money, $400,000 or $500,000 in a purse like that. Carl Spackler, Far Bridge, they would be perfect Penn Mile type horses in the 3-year-old ranks if they don't want to go long in the Belmont Invitational Derby or wait for the Saratoga Invitational Derby. Again, those are longer races, but if you want to stay in those middle distances and probably avoid the Coolmore horses coming before the races at Belmont and Saratoga, Penn Mile could be a very interesting race where Far Bridge, Carl Spackler, horses like that could be some serious runners come June. We'll see how it shakes out in the 3-year-old turf division. That's going to wrap up our 5 topics this week. We want to have a little fun with some March Madness, though, before we go. Our bonus topic that we have each week. Jeff, I watched the bracket unveiling, and everybody's talking about their Final Fours. It seems to be the same. Everybody's got Alabama and Texas, and Duke as a 5 seed is picked by everybody to get to the Final Four. All the experts have Duke. Everybody has Duke. Every year they have Duke. I'm sick of Duke. They're a good team. They're a great program, but they're always picked. Have you ever had a horse in that same boat? Great horse. Everybody's behind him, but you just don't want him to win. For me, it was Skip Away. I never rooted for Skip Away. Mm-hmm. And part of it was Sonny Hine. He would talk trash. I stood next to the rail while Skip Away breathed, and Sonny Hine would talk about how he's pulling a 160-pound exercise rider around there like he can't get beat. And then he went out and got drilled in the 1998 Breeders' Cup Classic in that great field at Churchill. I always like Sonny Hine and Skip Away. They were Duke to me. They were good. I know they were good, but I wanted them to get beat every time. Did you ever have a horse like that?
Usually I root against people, not horses. Well, of course you did too with Sonny Hine. But you mentioned trash talking. Nobody talked trash better than Bud Delp with Spectacular Bid. And that kind of hit me the wrong way. I ended up meeting Buddy Delp, and I thought he was a cool kind of guy, but I didn't know that at the time. So when Spectacular Bid ran in the Belmont to try to complete the Triple Crown, which, by the way, was no big deal back then because the Secretariat and the firm and Seattle sort of done it. So I didn't have to. I wasn't like I was worried about. Oh, I didn't see a Triple Crown winner, but also I loved the horse in the Belmont named Coastal. So I don't think I rooted harder for any horse to win harder than Coastal to beat Spectacular Bid. And I wasn't that crazy about Spectacular Bid because of what Buddy was bragging on him all the time, calling him the greatest horse ever to look through a bridle, which, by the way, he wasn't that far wrong, That's in retrospect. So for one race anyway, I hated Spectacular Bid and I loved Coastal, but that was more of a gambling thing than anything else.
Water under the bridge for the Bid, water under the bridge for Skip Away, but the water's still way over the bridge for Duke. Let's
but you're talking about everybody hating Duke, and that's a given, right? Yeah. I said, who do you hate? Duke, of course. Besides Duke, who do you hate?
If you're not going out on the limb there.
Right.
That's going to wrap up this week's 5 topics. We hope you enjoyed it. Jeff and I will be back on Friday with our First Call podcast, where we preview weekend stakes races. Huge weekend coming up in Maryland. 5-6 stakes races there for the Pot of Gold Day at Laurel Park, including the private term stakes. They're going to go 2 turns for the first time on the Preakness Trail in Maryland. So we'll preview all the big stakes races for the weekend. Jeff, gear yourself up for some bouncing basketball starting tonight, I guess. First 4 is about to get underway.
Right. First 4 tonight. I'll be at Sacramento for the Western regions. And if we get, that is we being UCLA, if we get through that, I'll be back in Vegas the following week. I can drive if I have to, that's great.
There we go.
But yeah, it's a fun time of the year, especially this year when there is no standout team. There'll be, this might be the one year that none of the number ones get there. I don't know. It's possible. But it's fun. And it's just a great time for basketball fans and also for people like you and me who watch the races every week. And I know you're looking forward to Keeneland. That's coming up pretty quick.
Yep.
And it's a good time. Good times right now, and lots to keep us occupied.
Cheltenham Festival going on this week, Tuesday through Friday. If you like the jump races and the big fields and the excitement with that, you can play it with First Bet and Express Bet. Be sure to check that out. We've got picks from Racing ITV offering their international picks for that available at the First Bet and the Express Bet websites to help you out with Cheltenham. On behalf of everybody with Express Bet and First Bet and Jeff Siegel, I'm Jeremy Plonk. Good luck. We'll talk to you on Friday.